Today, what I'm going to be doing is ranking all the Star Wars movies and TV shows in 3 different tiers. I'm not going to go down a list and number them because there's so many that I think that putting them in a number order kind of cheapens it, and I think it dilutes really people's opinions. But if you guys want me to do that in the future, I absolutely can. Let's go ahead and lay down the ground rules. So let me go ahead and start by explaining the tiers. So tier A is going to be my absolute favorites. Something that when I'm sitting down and somebody says, hey, what do you want to watch some Star Wars? These are the things that immediately pop into my mind. The B tier is going to be, of course, things that I really enjoy and I think are high quality, but aren't part of the first group of movies and things that I think to watch first. And then when we get to the C tier, we're talking about movies or shows that just don't give me as excited, or things that I just haven't taken the time to rewatch very often. So my plan is to go in canon chronological order and put all of these movies and shows in their tier. So my plan after doing these tiers is actually to go back and rewatch everything before the release of The Rise of Skywalker and do a re-tiering of the movies and shows in order to, refresh my mind. This is everything off of, just what I've watched recently and what I have memories of, because some of the stuff I haven't rewatched in a while. Note to the editor, please insert trigger warning here. Nah, take out the no trigger warning. Let's not do that. I don't know, we should put it in. It's funny. Yeah, let's leave it. Okay, we'll leave it. If you can't have a civil discussion about Star Wars and can't talk about a movie without saying, it sucked, this video probably isn't for you. And my comment section probably isn't for you either. I'm a pretty positive guy, and none of these movies or shows suck. So don't expect me to be overly negative. If that's you, you can refrain from putting comments or whatever like that. Let's keep it civil, have fun, and give your tiers in the comment section down below. Now, if you're not familiar with the art, it actually is a compilation of a beautiful mural that he made at Star Wars Celebration that spanned all the way from episode 1 all the way to episode 9. Did beautiful art, and this is basically a condensed version of all of that. You can go ahead and check out the link in the description for different pictures and frames of this mural, because I really, really like it. Okay, let's jump into it. Episode 1. Obviously, one of the most controversial things about episode 1 is the fact that Jar Jar Binks is in it. There is also Kid Anakin, who a lot of people thought was too young. For me, Phantom Menace lands in a B tier. It has a lot of really strong emotional pulls. I know a lot of people have the opinion that they really liked Qui-Gon Jinn's character. I really liked him as well. I actually really enjoyed the recent book, Master and Apprentice, where he was featured, because I just think he's such an awesome character. Of course, the introduction of Darth Maul. Like, there's a lot of great intros, a couple of cringy things here and there, but I still really enjoy it. It's going to be put in the B tier. Next, we have the Attack of the Clones. So the Attack of the Clones movie is one that a lot of people, they like to say that, oh, this movie sucked, it was so bad. And it does have some issues in the progression of, like, the relationship building of Anakin and Padme, which I think is what kind of makes some things hard. Obviously, it's important. Their relationship is really important. If they could have worked to make it come off a little more genuine, I think is probably one of my issues with it. I still really enjoy it. We do see the rise of the Republic here, and of course, as an X-Wing player, it's really cool. You can see the development of the different ships and weaponry that we're going to be seeing here in X-Wing. I'm going to go ahead, and it is a C tier, because I will say that out of all of them, it is the movie I feel like I get the most distracted during. Like, I'm okay, like, getting up, walking away, doing something else, and coming back and sitting down, rather than being really glued to the couch. Haven't rewatched this one in a while. Maybe my opinion will change. Now, I want to talk about the animated Clone Wars movie. For those of you who don't know, there actually is a prequel to the Clone Wars TV show that had a theatrical release, and honestly, when it came out, I didn't even know about it. So I ended up watching it later in life. Honestly, it's okay. If you've watched some of the other Clone Wars stuff and you're a huge fan of it, and then you end up discovering that this little movie exists and you go back you most likely won't enjoy it as much as if you had probably watched that Clone Wars movie and then grew with the development of the show. The Clone Wars movie is going to be in the C tier for me. You get good introductions of all the characters. It's one of those where, again, I don't mind standing up, walking away, coming back. Now we're going to get into a little bit of TV shows. Chronologically, now we're at the Clone Wars TV show. Here's the problem with the Clone Wars TV show. It was really hard for me to place the entire show. I mean, it's so many seasons, and trying to just put it into a single tier. The reality is that as it starts, it's really rough. It's a little bit slow paced. You're still like learning all these characters. They're doing a lot of things to establish the world, which makes sense. Also is built for a younger audience, and it really grew in complexity and some of the darker things that we really like in the later seasons. You know, that develops with the audience that it was made for. It goes from C tier, and then by the time we get to the last couple seasons, it is definitely A tier. Now, I'm not sure how that's gonna get placed in the chart, but sure, we'll figure it out. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, in my opinion, is in the B tier, but honestly, borders on going into the C tier. I think it's probably the lowest for me in the B tier. It obviously has a lot of important plot points with Anakin turning into Darth Vader, but it's one of those movies where, you know, I haven't taken the time to go back and watch it too many times. It doesn't have a lot of nostalgia for me, but obviously it's still very important. It is exciting, has a lot of really cool fight scenes. I mean, I don't really have too much to say about it. There's cool stuff. You know, we get the high ground. Lots of great memes.
Hello there.
So now let's go ahead and talk about Solo: A Star Wars Story. Honestly, I absolutely love this movie. It's a fun action adventure movie that had a lot of what we wanted to see. We saw the development of Han Solo, of Lando, and got to see some new background into the Star Wars world. We got a lot of world building. We got to see, you know, the Imperial recruitment process. We got to see ground troops taking over a planet. We got to see, you know, the heist scene, which is of course just awesome and amazing. And we got to see the Kessel Run. I mean, there was so many awesome moments. I would say the one thing was, you know, how Han got his last name. You know, the Imperial officer essentially gave him his name. Han, Solo, you're alone. I know another one of the issues that some people have with the movie is seeing Han Solo already being like a nice guy before his development in the original trilogy. I kind of look at Han's story arc as he'd always been, you know, obviously he grew up on the streets of Corellia and had a hard life, but he had always been good, right? Good at heart, had good intentions, was always, you know, thinking with his heart. In the time where he had to be a smuggler and maybe do some more distasteful things is maybe where his heart got a little bit hard, you know, just he locked himself up, and then eventually Leia, of course, unlocks him again. You know, it's a movie that I think gives me everything I wanted. I know that it did bad for a Star Wars movie in the box office, but I really think that mostly had to do with the release schedule. If they would have just not had it only 6 months after, and also it was released right after like Infinity War, like there was no time to hype it up like a Star Wars movie usually is hyped up. They should have just kicked it to December. So overall, I'm gonna go ahead and place it in the top tier because it's fun, it's funny, has cool monsters and aliens, and it's a great Star Wars movie. I love it. Next we have the TV show Star Wars Rebels. And similar to the Clone Wars TV show, it starts off feeling very young, and then as it progressed through the story, it got into more action, a little bit darker plots, which of course, as an adult, I enjoy the complexity of those type of storylines. For me, it does that same thing where it starts in the C tier and then just makes a slow rise. And by the last 2 seasons, we get a lot of complexity, a lot of depth with the world between worlds, and we see Palpatine starting to really stretch the reach of the Empire. It's pretty amazing. If you haven't watched Star Wars Rebels, I absolutely recommend it. Ends in the A tier, and you will not regret watching it. Rogue One has some of the most awesome action sequences in any Star Wars movies. And of course, it focuses on characters who are not Force users. Puts us in a situation where you said, hey, that could be me. But one of the issues that I have throughout the storytelling is that the character that they choose to revolve the story around, I feel like we have, like I want more from Jyn Erso. Now I will say, if you read the books that go along with Rogue One, the Catalyst, really that one, the one before that, and also Tarkin, you will have a much bigger appreciation of Rogue One because you go in really understanding where she comes from. As a standalone film, I think some people have questions, a lot of questions about Jyn Erso. They want to know more about her backstory, and really those are in those books. Highly recommended. Rogue One is in the B tier for me. I really like the Force and lightsabers and stuff like that. It's one of my favorite parts in Star Wars, but it has also the ships, an absolutely epic half-hour space battle where just things are going down. We, of course, get Super Vader at the end. And it's in the B tier mostly because some of the things that were in the book, I wish they would have developed more and been able to see it in the movie. Knowing more makes me want more. We're going to go ahead and place Rogue One in the B tier. Now we get into the original trilogy. A New Hope, the movie that started it all. Now I want to give you guys a little bit of insight into my introduction to Star Wars, as it did start with the original trilogy. I went with my parents to Kmart, the Kmart that is now closed, and I got the box set, and I still have my VHS tapes from that birthday. You know what? I'm gonna go get them. The original trilogy, okay? Of asking my parents that the only thing I wanted for my birthday was the Star Wars movies. I already knew that, spoilers, that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father, but I didn't have any connection to these characters. I need to know what's happening. I guess peer pressure is what really did it. I have this very clear memory of walking out and holding the bag with my Star Wars movies the next like 3 weekends in a row, because I was only allowed to watch TV on the weekends. I had the opportunity to watch all the movies. Well, I was only allowed to watch about an hour of TV a day on the weekends. It took me a little while. My parents stretched it in order for me to be able to watch one movie a weekend. A New Hope. A New Hope for me is in the B tier. And I know some people might be absolutely raging right now when they hear me say that. Rewatching it as many times as I have, it does have that feeling of the fact that it was supposed to be its own complete movie because they weren't sure if they were going to be able to go through with an entire trilogy. It definitely feels beginning, middle, end, and nothing else was supposed to come before or after it. And of course, it absolutely exploded. There's missed opportunities in the movie with developing the trilogy as or just developing this whole storyline that spans so many movies because it was only meant to be one. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the B tier. Now we get to The Empire Strikes Back. And of course, yes, I am one of those people who absolutely believe that it is in the A tier. Now, I will start by saying that it is not my favorite Star Wars movie, which is probably the most controversial thing I'll say here. Maybe. Foreshadowing. The Empire Strikes Back absolutely does a wonderful job of world building. George Lucas had his opportunity to do the trilogy, and it was his chance to really expand things, start to show us different parts of the Star Wars universe. Had a lot of unexpected moments. The Empire Strikes Back is absolutely in the A tier. Next one, we have The Return of the Jedi. Now, The Return of the Jedi has a special place in my heart because it was the movie that I watched the most with my brother and sister. They're 8 years younger than me, and you can imagine that they absolutely loved their Ewoks. So for me, this is actually my favorite Star Wars movie just because of the nostalgia factor. And a lot of people's tiers are going to change depending on their life experience with these movies, right? Maybe if I was just looking at it as a, just film, maybe I would rank The Empire Strikes Back above The Return of the Jedi, but right there, personal experience goes ahead and says, hey, for me, Return of the Jedi is number 1 and in the A tier. Now we are in episode 7, The New Trilogy. Let me start by saying, before I even get into these movies, I really enjoy all the stuff that Disney has made around Star Wars because when I watch movies, I'm along for the ride. I'm there to have a good time. I'm not there to be cynical. I like having fun, and that's what I'm there to do when I'm watching a movie. Episode 7, it introduces a really strong new character, and I will be completely honest, as the father of a daughter, it was really amazing to see this character, Rey. It seems sad, right? She's all alone, and then she just develops into this extremely strong character who is unafraid to listen to the Force and just to do absolutely amazing things. I put this in the B tier, bordering on A tier. Mostly, again, it is an introduction story, and yes, it very closely mirrors what was in Episode 4. And because of that, it feels a little bit condensed for me. I would have loved to see more of Finn's backstory. It's a starter story, which I think is probably the most important thing. Some people complain about the fact that it mirrors Episode 4 so much. I don't think that's a problem when it comes to rebooting Star Wars, because essentially Episode 7 for me is the beginning of a bunch of new Star Wars fans. You saw a huge influx and excitement about Star Wars because it's been renewed. Episode 7 is my daughter's Star Wars. It's her age and a little bit older. That's their introduction into the series. Episode 7, I think it's a great movie. It's in the B tier, on that edge, reaching for A. And last but not least, we have The Last Jedi. Obviously, this is one of the most controversial movies that we've had released in recent time when it comes to Star Wars. For me, I'm just gonna get it out there. You can click off the movie if you want to, you know what's coming. I put it in the A tier. Listen, I understand you person who's very angry with me and looking at your screen or listening, shaking your head. I want you to just hear me out because I'm not here to have an argument. I'm gonna just tell you guys how I feel. The Last Jedi is a really great piece of art. It looks beautiful. Does it have its issues? Yes. But the direction in which they took this Star Wars movie was completely different than what a lot of people expected. It took a lot of turns. People were really surprised that Luke ended up being a hermit. For me, a person who goes into movies wanting to go on a ride, wanting to be surprised, that was a great ride. Like, I super engaged from beginning to end because as soon as they started doing, it started with Luke Skywalker taking that lightsaber and throwing it over his shoulder. What? We really don't know what Episode 9 is going to be, which I think is awesome. And I think one of the issues going into 7, there was a lot of people that had questions that they wanted answers. Who's the Knights of Ren? What is Snoke? Where does he come from? Like, there's all these questions. For me as a musician and a person who really appreciates a lot of art, the Last Jedi release reminds me of the original debut of The Rite of Spring. If you're not familiar with that, that was a piece of music where when it debuted, critics going mad saying this is the most terrible piece of music that ever happened. Now, in the classical music world, it is revered as a masterpiece. The composer really set precedents for modern music, 20th century music. For me, The Last Jedi is in the A tier because it took risks, don't know what's gonna happen. And of course, while we do call this the Skywalker saga, and a lot of people's biggest thing is the fact that, well, Luke Skywalker is dead. How can it be the end of the Skywalker saga? The ending of The Last Jedi was the most Jedi thing that Luke could have done to really end it all, right? Keeper of the peace. But I know that's not a very popular opinion. I don't really care. This is what this whole video is. If you got this far, you understand you've been listening to my opinions. So now the question here, the big question mark is, where will the rise of Skywalker end up in all of this? Who knows? I have my theories, and if you guys want me to talk about more just Star Wars overall, let me know. I'm extremely excited about the rise of Skywalker. I'm excited, of course, as an X-Wing player, see what cool new ships we might see out there on the table here soon. And I'm just ready to take another ride in the Star Wars world. So thank you so much for watching. And if you want to give your tiers for the movies, go ahead and do that in the comment section down below. It's probably my favorite thing when I see you guys put your opinions in there. And I think what my plan is Over the next couple months, I'm gonna go ahead and actually be streaming myself I'm gonna be watching the movies with you guys. Now, I can't actually show the movie via, the terms of service of Twitch and YouTube, but it'll be, the camera will be on me. I'll give you guys a time code. We can watch along. We'll have the audio on there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and reassess my tiers. We'll take, our current graph, compare it to what we get after that. And then we're gonna go watch The Rise of Skywalker in December and see how we feel about that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Gold Squadron out.